In this video, I will attempt to answer the question, is the brown eye gene dominant? It's a question a lot of people online ask and can't figure out the answer to. Now, in case you are familiar with my channel, my sarcasm and irony is no surprise to you, and Lord knows how much irony and sarcasm is packed into the title of this video. First, let's set the record straight on what a gene is and what a gene isn't. The Punnett squares you've been learning in 7th grade represent the inheritance pattern for a specific variation, a single nucleotide polymorphism. Single nucleotide polymorphism are also known as SNPs. A gene is a linked region consisting of multiple such SNPs. A gene is much more complex than a single nucleotide polymorphism is. Since genes are tightly linked regions, for every gene you can build a phylogenetic tree and track the independent nucleotide mutations that have occurred. Geneticists usually don't bother with this though, due to dislinkage events. I made this really nice image in MS Paint to explain to you what a dislinkage event is and why it matters. Typically, you'd inherit one copy of the entire gene with all its nucleotides from one parent and the other copy from the other. However, sometimes this linkage occurs and instead of inheriting the whole gene in full, you inherit it partially. Your genotype is still derived from the genotypes of your parents, but the phylogeny is now broken. Because of this phenomenon, it is actually very difficult to use genes to draw any correlation between genotype and phenotype, and geneticists mostly use single nucleotide polymorphism for statistical analysis instead. This is what this video is going to be about, various single nucleotide polymorphisms that correlate with eye color. Now, just so that we are on the same page, when you see charts such as this, you have to understand that the label OCA2 and HERC2 here only serves as a metaphor or a shortcut for the various single nucleotide polymorphisms located in those genes that are decisive in eye color prediction. I use termins such as BEH3 and BEH2, blue eye haplotypes 3 and 2, as shortcuts for a set of variants in the HERC2 gene that are most decisive in eye color. It does actually need to be mentioned that besides HERC2 and OCA2, there are other genes with very strong links to eye color. In fact, some SNPs in TIRP1 gene, SLC45A2 gene, and SLC24A4 gene have stronger correlations to eye color than some variants in OCA2. This is why the whole idea of a single brown eye gene or even a single brown eye nucleotide polymorphism is so funny. Even when we limit our scope to the OCA2 region, there are still at least 4 major single nucleotide polymorphisms that are implicated in eye color. Regardless of all this, BEH2 and BEH3 variations in HERC2 are still by far the most decisive variations when it comes to eye color prediction. Since BEH2 is ancestral to BEH3, everyone who has at least one copy of the BEH3 mutation has at least one copy of the BEH2 mutation as well, unless a dislinkage event occurred, of course. I have analyzed over 500 different genomes and have come up with a statistic for the BEH3 mutation. To optimize the validity of this data, I excluded the people who don't have two derived variants in BEH2 from my stat. With this data, we can see that once we account for the effect of the major variation in BEH2, the effect of BEH3 is actually not so significant, and we can tell that in the BEH3 phenotype, the principle of codominance applies. Both alleles are expressed in the phenotype, neither is dominant over the other. This is also the conclusion we can draw from looking at the stats for BEH2 mutation. If the ancestral allele was dominant over the derived allele, the percentages for AG would be identical to those for AA. This is far from reality. In regards to dominant and recessive variants, it would be very difficult for you to find any such variants in any of the coloring-related genes. Even albinism mutations in TIR tend to express themselves in people with heterozygous genotype. By the way, the genetics of blue eyes are more complex than just if you don't have BEH2 you can't have them, because there are alternative mutations in OCA2 such as BEH4 that can yield a blue eye color. For example, like Todd here, who's got blue eyes with an amber center, and AA in BEH2, not a single derived variant in BEH2, but still he's got blue eyes. Although BEH4 is a super rare mutation that pretty much only occurs in the Mediterranean and doesn't explain any of the eye color differences in Northern Europe or places like Finland or Scandinavia. Okay, what about green eyes though? Is there such a thing as green eye gene? The answer to that question is no. There most certainly isn't. In terms of phenotype, green is simply an intermediate eye color between blue and brown. Because it is an intermediate eye color, there is almost an infinite amount of genetic combinations that can produce green eyes. Yes, as with any other trait, it can be predicted with DNA. In fact, I have made a tool that does exactly that. You should check it out from the link which is in the description. But even my tool, which looks at over 40 different variants to determine eye color, is not able to accurately tell apart, for example, green eyes from blue eyes with an amber center. With my own tool, I am predicted to have blue eyes with an amber center, when in reality my eye color is green. What is the takeaway from this video? The genetics of eye color are more complex than what your middle school biology teacher taught you. If you are interested in genetics content, analysis of various ancient human and non-human genomes, subscribe to my channel.